Okay, so our first speaker to start this webinar, which took actually a break of a week or 10 days, is Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who is the director of RP Rajendra Prasad Eye Institute, Delhi, a very daring surgeon, as you're going to be seeing when you watch his video, who actually enjoys to challenge himself, and he's going to showcase his video. On to you, Dr. Rajendra Prasad.
Okay, you can see my video, no?
Yes, yeah, we would see. Now we are seeing the first slide.
Yeah. Good afternoon, friends, and very thanks to the ARC and special thanks to Dr. Chitra for inviting me to be one of the speakers of this unique concept of ARC webinars. And thanks to all the ARC office bearers also. So my topic is triple trouble. Triple trouble is about a case who has a diffuse corneal opacity with healed uveitis, intermittent mature white cataract, and over that it has a very rock hard nucleus inside. And these each and every part of this eye is a challenge for a surgeon, and each step is going to be a challenge. And now, the first and most important point in this particular case was the visualization because of the corneal opacity. Then the second challenge was the rhexis because of the raised interlenticular pressure. Third was the nucleus.
Keep your volume a little low. We can't hear you clearly.
Because of the hard.
You can touch out the music.
Bring down the music. Switch off. Yeah.
Endothelial cell count. It's okay now?
Yes, yes.
It's fine? No.
You could play your video, yes.
Yeah. And finally, it was an eye replacement because of the capsular issues. The first important point to enhance the visibility was to stain the anterior capsule over the that corneal opacity, because you could see the corneal opacity and it was very difficult to view the cataract inside. So we have to stain the anterior capsule in a way so that the cornea does not take up any stain. So we are doing a tri-soft stain, that is putting the trypan blue under the viscoelastic so that the cornea doesn't take up the stain, and we get a good staining of the anterior capsule also. So you could see here now the anterior capsule is well stained, and although this case has a diffuse corneal opacity, but we could still see the capsule very clearly now, because which was not very clearly visible earlier because of the stain now. And now before we start the capsular rhexis, we need to pressurize the anterior chamber. So I'm trying to do a small needle aspiration in this particular case because this is an old video. And you could see here, because the moment I go inside and prick the anterior capsule opens up and it turns into the Argentinian flag sign. So this is an unexpected complication which has happened in this particular case, the Argentinian flag sign. But our aim now is to prevent the further extension of the tear into the posterior capsule. So that could be done with the good capsular decompression. We have to restructure the rhexis. We have to use the least manipulation and least phaco forces to crack that hard nucleus. Now, to prevent the further extension of the capsular tear, we need to do a decompression. Now you can see here, the decompression we can only do in this because there's a fluffy material which has to be evacuated. So I'm doing a visco expression of that fluffy material in this particular case without using any hydro procedure or so. And this is called as a visco expression of the fluffy cortical material. So we could decompress the capsular bag. Now, once the decompression is complete, we need to pressurize the anterior chamber, and then for restructuring the capsular rhexis, I'm giving a small nick at one of the edge of the tear which has happened, and trying to create the capsular rhexis, at least to some sort of capsular rhexis. Now this is one of the semi-circular rhexis which I have created from one of the edge of the tear, and this is the second one which is in the process. And the first one was not could not take very far away to the periphery, but the second one has been the nice one, and we have now quite nicely opened up the nucleus, but you can see the nucleus is very dark brown nucleus and hard nucleus. Now the challenge is to crack this nucleus without putting any stress on the posterior capsule or the torn area, so that you do not extend the tear into the posterior capsule. So I'm using here the terminal chop technique. So the idea is that you just lift the nucleus, bring it away from that torn area, and then crack the nucleus. So this will not produce any kind of stress on that torn area of the capsule, so that you could crack. And you can see the nucleus has been broken into two complete separate pieces. I've taken the one of the heminuclei towards the torn area, because what I'm going to do is I'm holding the nucleus and taking it away from that torn area and then cracking it. So you have now these free nuclear pieces, and it becomes very easy now to emulsify these free nuclear pieces. So I'm trying to emulsify, and once the emulsification is complete, now you could see that there isn't much of cortical or epinuclear material, because it was a complete nuclear material only. And you could see the diffuse corneal opacity now. But this diffuse corneal opacity was not visible earlier. And then finally comes into the placement of the IOL. You have the trick here is you have to keep the haptic underneath one of the torn area, so that you take it underneath the torn, because it's not stuck on the torn area. And then the second haptic is again placed, and it has to be perpendicular to the tear, the direction of the tear. It has to be perpendicular to the direction of the tear. So while aspirating the viscoelastic, you should not go underneath the lens, because which we normally do, because if you go underneath, the lens may displace and the tear may extend further. Now, after the completion of the day, this is the first day post-op. You can see the fairly clear cornea, and on the 7th post-op day, this particular patient regained around 6/12 vision with minus 1.25 with the cylindrical power at 70 degrees. So thank you very much. So this was a short presentation of this case. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Anj Prasad. There are 3-4 important things we need to talk when you're talking about a hard cataract and uveitis, healed uveitis. So the one thing which I want to take is, what are the measures? I would ask Dr. Partha Vishwas. I did hear a uveitis talk of his sometime recently. So what are the measures which you would take to prevent reactivation of uveitis in these cases when you're taking them up for surgery?
Okay, thank you very much, Chitra, for including me in this wonderful webinar. Though it's a Sunday, 2:30 nap time.
Thank you very much.
But very well designed by you. Thanks a lot. So about the uveitic issues in such cataracts, uveitis can form another paragraph in the consideration of these cataracts with hard nucleus, with corneal opacity plus uveitis. So in these, the uveitis itself has the same protocols as in any other case. That is the preoperative steroids, the uvea, no acute signs of uveitis, and the steroids continuing for 6 weeks, if required for 8 weeks, the NSAIDs continuing for 3 months, and considering the systemic use of the systemic steroids as and when required. Means if on the first post-operative day, the uveitic symptoms are not much, then of course they can be tapered off quickly. But if it is a full-blown uveitis on the first post-operative day, then to be tapered off over a month or so.
Yeah,
I have a question, RP, Dr. RP, about, I mean, you handled the situation so well. The only thing that I would like to ask is, like you mentioned, that you debulked the intralenticular cortical matter by pushing in viscoelastic over and above the torn rhexis. So I would, I would have my concerns in the sense that if we try and tamponade it with more viscoelastic and high molecular viscoelastic, the tamponade effect itself might cause an increase of even a ripped anterior capsule and might convert it into a full blown, rhexis, which has run over to the posterior capsule. On the other hand, I would think that if we can take off the intralenticular pressure, even in the stone capsule, which has ripped end to end, then the intralenticular pressure is definitely reduced, and then place the high molecular weight viscoelastic or the methyl cellulose.
And Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the other thing is, how did you balance the phaco parameters? Because a hard cataract needs a high flow rate and a Rex's tear needs low flow rate. So what can you just in one sentence tell me how you balanced it?
Just answer Dr. Partha's query first. And because this, as I very clearly mentioned, because this was a fluffy and a little semi-solid kind of material, which couldn't have been possible to otherwise aspirate it nicely. And the visco expression is a very nice technique because you are going from the main pot, because you're not pressurizing the anterior chamber at all, because you're just going underneath the torn area and trying to move that with the help of the needle, this fluffy material, and then by injecting and taking it out very slowly, because you're not pressurizing the anterior chamber at all in this particular situation, because and it very easily comes up, like these fluffy material will come out through the main pot very easily, because you're not straining the anterior capsule at all with this. That is one. And Dr. Chitra's query, like the parameters are very, very important in this particular situation, because you're dealing with a hard nucleus. But as I have shown, because if you are able to crack these hard nuclei nicely, because with a very low parameter, you don't need very high parameter for cracking the nucleus, holding the nucleus, very low parameters. And you can, if you are able to crack the nucleus, so that is the crux in these hard characters. You have to crack the nucleus into free pieces. If you are able to crack them into free pieces, then with any parameter, you can emulsify these pieces. Because if you're not able to crack, then definitely you'll have a problem. Then you'll have to use a very high parameter, and the high parameter means that you are going to strain the capsule and the tear may extend to the posterior capsule.
Dr. Mahipal, does it not make sense that we place a 3-piece IOL in the capsular bag, which is so badly ripped? Because placing a single piece in the bag, it can easily come into the sulcus, no? Your thoughts?
Okay, so the first thing before we go on to the IOL, I would be prepared for either taking up this patient for a femto, or obviously if I have to do the other thing, I'll be doing this patient under a block, because you are anticipating an intumescent cataract and a rip-off. And what he did was very good, that whatever area was remaining, he made that into a rhexis. That's something very important. Now, this cataract was not that dense, as I would say. It was white, but it wasn't that hard. But if the cataract is very, very hard, then one could switch over to an SICS right at this particular point, rather than trying to, because these rhexis tends to go there. And then what you have said is absolutely correct. In case there is a large rip and you feel that the bag is going to be unstable, I would put a 3-piece lens in the sulcus rather than in the bag. But once you have that in a sulcus, the only problem would be that the chances of PCO would increase very, very significantly with the envelope. It's more like an envelope capsulotomy, and that the anterior and the posterior doing together. But I think what he saw was that there was a extension and it wasn't going anywhere, and the majority of the area was within his control. So I think what he did was excellent, and the thing that he told was to be sure that it is going within the bag rather than on top of it. I would also go ahead and put a single piece lens, and obviously if it's a toric, I will not put a toric lens, but if it's a normal monofocal lens, I'll go ahead and put a normal monofocal lens, because the rip didn't extend and it was a localized linear cut. And the rest of the rhexis on the superior part and the inferior part, they were absolutely all right.
Dr. Ramamurthy or Dr. Gaurav, would you all have think otherwise on that and say anything about the IOL part? Because the single haptic coming into the sulcus is not a very ideal situation. So we need the audience to know why you could still place it.
I'll let Dr. Ramamurthy say
No,
first.
go ahead, Gaurav. Go ahead.
Okay, so in my hands, if I'm sorry I joined late, first of all, and apologies. But
Thanks.
So I would, sometimes in a broken rhexis, I still put a single piece into the bag if I'm confident that the break is like maybe at one place, a small break, or maybe a small at 2 places as well. If the rest of the bag seems good, but if it's like a totally, I didn't get to see Dr. Rajendra Prasad's case, so I won't be qualified to kind of mention in his particular case. But I would, if I had multiple points broken and the capsular bag was not likely to retain the lens in the bag, then I would definitely go go with a 3-piece lens. But if I could ensure that the haptics were nicely inside and I had good protection of a rhexis which was intact in most places, I would still not mind putting in a single piece.
One thing
yes.
which I couldn't mention there because of that lack of time, the Dr. Om Prakash, the sign of fluttering flap.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned in the video, the flap was fluttering, so you are sure that the tear hasn't extended into the posterior capsule. If you are sure that the tear is within control, and as Dr. Mahipal has said, like he would definitely go in for the one-piece lens. And in this particular case, because the important thing is your haptics have to be perpendicular to the tear. That is very, very important point. And second is you have to see, like, if your optic of the lens is well covered by the rhexis, then very unlikely that the lens will rotate or change direction. That was the 2 point I went for the one single piece lens in this particular case.
Dr. Ramurthy, do you think a bidirectional tear is actually more safer than a unidirectional tear? Do you feel that?
That's one concept, because if it's a rhexis runoff in only one axis, then the capsular bag is fixed only there. So if you have a multiple ribs, as in a can opener or like a Argentinian flag sign, maybe relatively the stress is distributed among 2 points or multiple points. As far as the lens choice is concerned, I'd agree with what Dr. RP did, and he did beautifully a difficult case. And even if it's a toric IOL, unless the orientation of the toric lens is likely to be, optic haptic junction is likely to be along the axis of the rib, I would not mind going ahead and placing a lens if it's especially well covered by the rhexis margin. And RP very nicely showed staining under the viscoelastic, just for the sake of the youngsters. Just in case you're trying to do that, it will not work if you're using HPMC or a dispersive viscoelastic. The whole thing will granulate. It has to be done essentially under cohesive viscoelastic. And one final question to you, RP. I mean, you're the person behind this terminal chop, and it seems to work beautifully in your hands. Though in chopping, we stress the bag minimally. Often during the lateral separation part, there is a certain amount of stressing that happens. But in your technique, what I noticed, though, as Mahipal said, it was not really a rock hard cataract. You hardly had to do any lateral separation. It cracked beautifully. And do you think that's one of the advantages of your technique?
Yeah, so actually, because the device which is used, as I said, this is the wedge device and it's a cracker. It's not a chopper, because chopper is a little thinner and it has a sharp edge. This is a cracker, it has a wedge inner edge. So what happens when you hook the nucleus and slightly draw it against the counter pressure produced by the phaco probe, the nucleus cracks at the equator itself. That crack transmits to the center and the equator on the other side. You don't have to do too much of separation in this situation. You get a complete cracking of the nucleus. So if you don't have to separate, then you're not going to put any kind of stress or pressure on the posterior capsule. So in that way, you can save. Another important point was, like, when you're holding the nucleus, you are slightly drawing the nucleus away from that torn area and then hooking it. So you're preventing any kind of stress to be produced on the torn area of the capsule. So in that way, the terminal chop would definitely help in this situation and would be much easier to do also.
Naga, you take your question, some doubt you had.
Yeah, just one or 2 points I just wanted to mention, ma'am. I think in this case, any sudden shallowing of the anterior chamber could actually precipitate the tear going into the posterior capsule. So each time we remove the probe from the eye, I think just like in a posterior polar, we need to refill the anterior chamber through the side port with viscoelastic so that there is no sudden shallowing. And second part regarding flax, I thought because of this corneal opacity, maybe it will not really help because it will not complete the laser.
Yes, absolutely relevant. Thanks a lot, Anna.